maybe it's just the opposite of that. There used to be something in my life that was in the way, too much, the wrong thing, and now God has freed me. As you think about your story and as you jot down those bullet points, those items that kind of make up what you would write into the script of your life, the chapter that would have your name on the title of that chapter. Those are some important things and important pieces of your story. They're important because that's what the work that God has done and is doing in you. And God wants to continue that work today. He wants to write more into your story. You know, sometimes our stories have effect that we don't even realize. I know of a woman in Florida. I don't know her name. I don't know really much about this woman, except I know a bit of a story of some things that happened to her. She's had a really rough time over the last couple of years or so. One of the things, the first big event that really kind of turned into really challenging time for this lady was that her husband passed away. He had some sickness and he passed away, and he left her behind with 2 young children and all the worries and cares of life. And she struggled through that and was really challenged by that. It was a very difficult time, as you can imagine it would be for any of us to go through that kind of a loss. But one of the things that happened next, just a couple months later, her house burned to the ground. And so here's this woman who, at this point of her husband passing away, has lost so much of the security and the friendship, the companionship, and the things that have held her life and given her security and help and hope. And then the one thing that she seems to have left, in the world at least, not her kids, but her house burns to the ground. It's an amazing story as I know some of the other pieces that unfold. As this story was woven together, though, this lady in Florida received help and love. She received assistance. She received prayers from a group of people in Arizona. You know, there's really no big connection except the lady in Florida has a sister who lives and works in an office in Phoenix. Lives in Phoenix, works in an office there. This sister, she knew what happened to her sister in Florida, but she told the story to some people at work. She was relaying to them what happened. And there's a Christian woman, a lady who worked there in that office, who's a Christian who heard this story and was touched in her heart. She was challenged. She displayed compassion because God had shown her compassion. She saw the grace that God had worked in her life, and she wanted to share that grace. She understood the love that God had for her, and so she wanted to emulate that love. So she told the story about the woman in Florida and what had happened to her life group. And together they prayed, and they sent money, and they sent things to help, and they shared, and they loved, and they told this woman that their love for her, even though they didn't know her. Now, you may think, okay, that's all right. Was anybody saved through that? Did evangelism happen there? Well, the interesting thing is the woman in Florida was already a Christian. But as I think about this story, it's a beautiful story because this woman's story, the story of the Christian lady in Phoenix, the story of the lady in her office who heard about this event and then took it on herself to share love and compassion and grace. That story was a witness to many people who may not have known Christ. And as you think about the story, it's amazing to me because there's people in an office in Phoenix who saw the love of Christ at work in the lives of a number of people. There's folks in a small group in a church that saw the love of Christ at work, and their lives were enriched and deepened. There's people in Florida who are near this woman who's gone through all of these challenges and struggles, who got to see the chapter unfold, the story being told of love, grace, and compassion. That's what's beautiful. That's what's beautiful about a story, is that it's meant to be shared. It's meant to be told. It's not meant to be kept to yourself. You could write a story and keep it to yourself. They call that a diary. But a story is meant to be shared. A story is meant to be given. A story is meant to be told and seen and shown and understood. After Jesus' resurrection, He appeared to the disciples. And in John chapter 20, verse 21, it tells us a little bit about what happened. It was an interesting thing. The disciples were in this house. They were locked in, had the shades drawn, had the doors locked. They were afraid of the Jews because the Jews had just killed Jesus. And they, just weeks before, just days before even, and they were afraid of the Jews, so they were hiding out. And Jesus appeared in this room, John chapter 20, verse 21, and he says, "Peace be with you." No kidding. The doors were locked, the windows were shut, and Jesus just appeared. He wanted to settle their hearts just a little bit after they jumped when he showed up. But then he gives them this great commission kind of phrase from the Gospel of John. "As the Father has sent me, even so, I am sending you." As the Father has sent me, even so, I am sending you. That's Jesus' commission for us to go and evangelize the world. He's telling us, go and evangelize. But you know, evangelism is boiled down to this. Turn your sheet back over. It's the one fill-in you have today, and I want you to get it. Evangelism is boiled down to this. Share your story. Share your story. And you know, as you share your story, there's a lot of ways you can go about that. When you greeted one another today, you shared your favorite book or movie or a song or something with one another, and that's just an icebreaker. That's just a way to start a conversation. That's just a way to get into someone else's life that you might not know them at all. You probably turned around and met someone that you might have never seen before, and you were able to have a conversation with them and just get it started and continue those kinds of conversations. Share your story with others. Don't quit, and don't think if you share your story once, that's all it takes. Because a lot of times people need to see us acting Christ-like over and over again. They need to hear the story of what God is doing in redeeming us more than once. They need to be told over and over to understand God has a great love for them, and he wants them to come and know him. We're going to watch a video here that just tells us you might need to share your story more than once.